The town of Ashcroft did not appear on most maps. If you drove through the forests of northern Montana, you could pass within a few miles of it and never know it existed. The roads leading there were old and poorly maintained. The nearest highway sat almost 40 miles away, and most travelers had no reason to leave it. Yet Ashcroft was real. At least, it used to be. The strange thing wasn't that the town had been abandoned. America was filled with abandoned towns. The strange thing was that people couldn't agree on when Ashcroft disappeared. Some records claimed the town was abandoned in 1974. Others listed it as active until 1989. A few government documents suggested people still lived there as recently as 1998. And every version contained contradictions, different populations, different mayors, different photographs. It was as if history itself could not decide what had happened there. Most people ignored the mystery, except for Noah Carter. Noah worked as an archivist in Denver. His job was simple: old newspapers, census records, photographs, property deeds. Thousands of forgotten pieces of history passed through his hands every year. Most were boring. Some were interesting. Only one changed his life. The photograph arrived inside a damaged collection purchased from a bankrupt local newspaper. At first glance, it appeared ordinary. A black and white image from the late 1970s. A group of people standing in front of a town hall. Children smiling. Families gathered. American flags hanging from wooden poles. Nothing unusual. Then Noah noticed the sign. Ashcroft Community Celebration, July 18, 1986. His eyes narrowed. That wasn't possible. According to the official records he had cataloged only weeks earlier, Ashcroft had already been abandoned for more than a decade by then. He checked the photograph again, then again. The date remained the same, 1986. The image looked authentic. No signs of manipulation, no evidence of forgery. And then he noticed something even stranger. Near the back row stood a man staring directly into the camera. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't smiling. His expression looked terrified, as if he knew something nobody else did. Noah enlarged the image. The man's face became clearer, and Noah nearly dropped the photograph because he recognized him. The man was his father. The problem was that his father had supposedly never been to Ashcroft, and in 1986, according to family records, he had been living over 1,000 miles away. Noah spent the entire night staring at the photograph. The next morning, he requested every document connected to Ashcroft. By the end of the week, he was obsessed. The town seemed to exist inside a maze of conflicting histories. Newspaper articles referenced events that never appeared in state records. Property maps showed buildings that officially didn't exist. Some documents listed hundreds of residents. Others listed none. The deeper Noah investigated, the stranger everything became. Then he found the journal. It belonged to a surveyor named William Hensley, dated October 14, 1972. Most entries were ordinary. Weather conditions, land measurements, forest notes, until the final pages. The handwriting changed dramatically, messier, shakier, almost panicked. One entry read, "People here keep forgetting things, not normal things, important things." Another, "I asked 3 residents how long they have lived in Ashcroft. Every answer was different." Then came the final entry, only one sentence. "If you stay too long, the town starts remembering you before you arrive." Noah read that sentence at least 20 times. He couldn't explain why, but something about it unsettled him more than any ghost story ever could. A week later, he took vacation time from work. 3 days after that, he was driving north toward Montana, toward a town that perhaps shouldn't exist at all. The journey took almost 12 hours. The further north he traveled, the fewer signs of civilization remained. Mountains replaced cities. Forests replaced neighborhoods. Roads narrowed. Cell service vanished. By late afternoon, gray clouds covered the sky. Rain began falling. The GPS stopped working. Noah switched to paper maps. Eventually, he found the old county road leading toward Ashcroft. The pavement looked untouched for decades. Trees leaned inward from both sides, creating a tunnel of shadows. The farther he drove, the quieter the world became. No passing vehicles, no radio signal, nothing. Just rain striking the windshield. Then he saw the sign. Welcome to Ashcroft. Population 312. The paint looked fresh. Noah stared at it in disbelief. Population 312? That made no sense. According to official records, nobody should be living here. Yet, as he continued down the road, lights appeared ahead. Street lights, homes, a church, a diner. Smoke rising from chimneys. The town wasn't abandoned. It was alive. And every instinct in Noah's body suddenly told him to turn around. But he didn't, because he had already seen his father's face in that photograph. And now he needed answers, even if Ashcroft didn't want to give them. Noah parked across from the diner and sat in his car for nearly a minute. Rain continued tapping against the windshield. The town looked normal. That was what bothered him. Not abandoned, not haunted, not mysterious. Normal. The buildings were maintained. The sidewalks were clean. Warm light glowed from windows. A few people walked along the street carrying umbrellas. Everything appeared exactly as a functioning small American town should. And yet, according to multiple state records, Ashcroft should not have existed. Noah grabbed his backpack and stepped outside. The cold air carried the smell of wet pine and wood smoke. For a moment, he wondered if he had somehow driven to the wrong place. Then he looked back at the sign. Welcome to Ashcroft. No mistake. The diner bell chimed softly as he entered. Inside, the atmosphere felt warm and inviting. Old country music played from a radio near the counter. Several locals sat drinking coffee. Conversations stopped almost immediately when Noah walked in. Not dramatically, just enough for him to notice. Then everyone resumed talking. A waitress approached with a friendly smile. Passing through? Noah nodded. Something like that. She handed him a menu. You won't find many travelers out here. Noah sat near the window. As he looked around, he noticed something strange. The people seemed happy, almost unusually happy. Their smiles lingered a little too long. Their laughter sounded slightly forced, like actors performing a version of small-town life. He couldn't explain why the feeling bothered him. The waitress returned with coffee. You staying overnight? Maybe. We have rooms above the old hotel. Noah thanked her. Then he decided to ask the question. How long has Ashcroft been here? The waitress laughed. Longer than me. No, I mean, when was it founded? She paused. The smile remained, but something behind her eyes shifted. Honestly, I don't remember. Noah frowned. You don't know? No. She looked genuinely confused, as if she had never considered the question before. Then she excused herself and walked away. Noah watched her disappear into the kitchen. A strange feeling settled over him. Most people know basic facts about their hometown. The answer should have been easy. Instead, she seemed unable to provide one. He pulled the old photograph from his backpack, the one containing his father. Carefully, he studied every face again. Then he noticed something he had missed before. A building visible in the background. Tall, brick construction, 3 stories, a clock tower. The structure didn't appear anywhere in the town outside. Noah folded the photograph and stood. An elderly man sitting nearby had been quietly watching him. The old man motioned toward the empty seat across from him. You're looking for something. It wasn't a question. Noah sat down. Maybe. The old man glanced toward the photograph. Then his face went pale. Not frightened, resigned, like someone seeing a problem return. "You should leave." Noah stared. "Why?" The old man's eyes moved toward the windows, toward the town outside, then back. "Because Ashcroft doesn't like being investigated." A chill moved through Noah's body. "What does that mean?" The old man hesitated, then leaned forward. "Tell me something." "What?" "What year is it?" Noah blinked. 2026. The old man's expression darkened. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he whispered, "No, not here." Noah felt his pulse quicken. "What do you mean?" The old man looked around carefully, making sure nobody else was listening. Then he lowered his voice further. "People arrive here from different years." Noah almost laughed. Almost. But the old man's face contained no trace of humor. "That's impossible." "I know. What are you saying?" The old man rubbed his hands together nervously. "I'm saying that when I arrived, Ronald Reagan was president." Noah stared. The old man appeared around 80 years old, maybe older. "What year did you arrive?" The old man swallowed. 1983. Silence. The diner suddenly felt much colder. "That's not possible." "No." The old man nodded slowly. "It isn't." Before Noah could ask another question, the front door opened. Every person in the diner immediately turned toward it. The reaction was subtle, but synchronized. Too synchronized. A man entered, wearing a dark coat. Tall, middle-aged, perfect posture. The room became silent. Not scared, respectful. The newcomer scanned the diner. Then his eyes landed directly on Noah. A smile appeared. It wasn't friendly, it wasn't hostile, it was recognition, as if he had been expecting him. The old man across the table immediately stood. Fear flashed across his face, real fear. Without another word, he hurried toward the back exit. The newcomer continued smiling. Then he approached Noah's table. "Mr. Carter." Noah felt his stomach drop. The man extended his hand. "Welcome to Ashcroft." "Do I know you?" "No." The smile widened slightly. "But we've been waiting for you." Every alarm bell inside Noah's head activated at once. "Waiting for me?" "Of course." The man's eyes briefly moved toward the photograph on the table, then back. "Your father came here too." The words hit Noah like a punch. For a moment, he couldn't speak. "You knew my father?" "Very well." The man pulled out a chair and sat down without permission. Rain continued falling outside. Nobody in the diner seemed interested in their conversation, and yet Noah felt as though everyone was listening. The man folded his hands. "My name is Richard Vale." "Who are you?" Richard's expression remained calm. "I'm the mayor." Noah froze. Mayor? According to official records, Ashcroft had not elected a mayor in decades. Yet here he was, sitting directly across from him, smiling, as though nothing about this situation was unusual. Richard leaned forward. "You came looking for answers." Noah nodded cautiously. "Yes." "Then let me offer some advice." "What advice?" Richard's smile faded slightly. For the first time, his expression became serious. "If you value your memories." He paused, listening to something distant, something Noah couldn't hear. "You listening." Then he finished the sentence. "Don't stay after sunset." Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. And for a split second, Noah thought he saw something impossible. In the reflection of the diner window. Not his own reflection, not Richard's. Another version of the town, a different Ashcroft, darker, older, empty. Then the image vanished, leaving only rain, and the growing feeling that he had entered a place where reality itself no longer followed the rules. By the time sunset arrived, Ashcroft had changed again. Not visibly, not in any way a stranger would easily notice, but Noah felt it. The town had shifted its behavior, like a living organism adjusting its posture when it sensed danger. Shadows grew longer than they should have. Streetlights turned on earlier than expected. And people began disappearing indoors one by one. The diner emptied slowly. The waitress avoided eye contact when Noah left. Even Richard Vale had not said another word after warning him, "Don't stay after sunset." That sentence kept repeating in Noah's mind as he walked through the streets. The air felt heavier now, not colder, heavier, as if the atmosphere itself had gained mass. Noah pulled his jacket tighter and looked around. The town was still alive, but quieter, too quiet. He passed houses where curtains were drawn tightly shut. No movement inside, no television glow, no voices. It was as if the entire population had agreed to vanish at the same exact time. Then he saw something that made him stop. A child standing at the end of the street, alone, maybe 10 years old, holding a small paper boat. The child looked directly at Noah. No fear, no curiosity, just calm observation. Noah hesitated. "Hey, are you okay?" The child didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the road leading out of town, then whispered, "You're not supposed to be before tomorrow." Noah frowned. What does that mean? The child tilted his head slightly, as if confused by Noah's confusion. Then he said something that froze Noah completely. "You arrived early." A sudden wind moved through the street, and in that moment, Noah noticed something horrifying. The child was not casting a shadow. Noah blinked rapidly, looked again. Still nothing. The streetlights flickered once, and when they stabilized, the child was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just empty street. Noah backed away slowly. His heartbeat grew louder in his ears. Something was fundamentally wrong with this place. Not just hidden, not just strange. Wrong in the way mathematics becomes wrong when the rules change. He turned and started walking faster, toward the hotel, above the diner as the waitress had mentioned. If there were answers, they would be there. The hotel stood at the edge of Main Street, 3 floors, old brick, and unmistakably the same building from the photograph. Noah felt a tightening in his chest as he stepped inside. The lobby was dimly lit, a single desk, a bell, a faded painting of the town hanging on the wall. No receptionist was visible, but a key was already placed on the counter. Room 312. Noah didn't touch it immediately. Instead, he looked around. The lobby felt abandoned, but not neglected. It felt paused, like someone had left in the middle of doing something and never returned to finish it. He picked up the key, and that was when he noticed the journal, sitting beside it. Old, leather-bound, his name written on the cover, Noah Carter. His breath caught. Slowly he opened it. The first page was blank. The second page contained a single sentence. "You always come here when you start remembering." Noah stepped forward. More pages followed. Handwriting he didn't recognize, and yet it felt familiar. The entries were dated, but the dates made no sense. 1994, 1995, 1996, 1997, 1998, all mixed together, as if time was not moving forward, but folding in on itself. One entry stopped him completely. "If you are reading this, then Richard has already spoken to you." Another, "The town does not create people, it reassigns them." Noah felt his hands tremble. He turned more pages rapidly, then stopped. A photograph fell out. It was him, standing in front of the diner, smiling, but the clothing was different, older, worn, and behind him stood Richard Vale. The same smile, the same posture. But Noah had no memory of this moment. His vision blurred slightly. "No," he whispered. The room suddenly felt colder. The hotel lights flickered. And then, from the staircase above, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Someone was coming down. Noah stared at the stairs. His body refused to move. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and finally, a figure appeared at the bottom step. It was Richard Vale. But something was different. His expression was no longer calm, no longer controlled. Now it carried something closer to urgency or fear. "You opened it," Richard said quietly. Noah couldn't speak. Richard looked at the journal in Noah's hands, then closed his eyes briefly. "That wasn't meant for you, yet." Noah finally found his voice. "What is this place?" Richard stepped forward slowly, and when he spoke again, his tone had changed completely. Not political. Not polite, but honest. Ashcroft is not a town. A pause. "It's a correction." Noah stared at him. "What does that even mean?" Richard's eyes shifted toward the window. Outside, the sky was no longer normal night. It was darker, heavier, almost liquid. "When reality breaks," Richard said softly, "it repairs itself by relocating what doesn't fit." Noah shook his head. "That doesn't make sense." Richard looked back at him. "It doesn't have to." A long silence followed. Then Richard said the words Noah would remember forever. "You were never supposed to leave Ashcroft." The hotel lights went out, and somewhere deep in the building, something moved again. The darkness inside the hotel was not complete. It was layered. Noah could still see shapes moving through the faint glow leaking in from the windows, but none of them behaved correctly. Shadows stretched in directions that didn't match the light source. The air felt unstable, like reality itself had been unplugged and plugged back in incorrectly. Richard Vale did not move. He stood perfectly still beside the desk, listening, not to Noah, to something deeper in the building. "You shouldn't have opened the journal," Richard said again, quieter this time. Noah tightened his grip on it. "I didn't understand what it was." Richard finally looked at him. "That's the problem. Understanding is what makes it permanent." A distant sound echoed through the hotel. Not footsteps, not wind, a low structural hum, like something enormous turning slowly beneath the building. Noah backed away from the counter. "Tell me what this place is," he demanded. Richard exhaled slowly. Then, for the first time, he looked exhausted. Not like a politician, not like a mayor, like someone who had repeated the same explanation too many times across too many versions of the same conversation. "Ashcroft is what happens when time loses agreement," he said. Noah frowned. "That's not possible." Richard nodded slightly. "It wasn't supposed to be." Another vibration passed through the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. Richard continued, "There was an event long before your records begin aligning properly. Something beneath this region was discovered, not built, not created, discovered. There was an event long before your records begin aligning properly. Something beneath this region was discovered, not built, not created, discovered." Noah felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What kind of thing?" Richard hesitated, then answered, "A structure that doesn't exist in one time." The words made no sense, and yet Noah felt his mind trying to accept them anyway. Richard walked slowly toward the center of the lobby. "When it was first disturbed, reality didn't collapse," he said. "It adapted." Noah followed cautiously. What does that mean? Richard looked at him directly. It started separating versions of the same place. Different years, different outcomes, different histories. All of them still happening, just not in the same sequence. Noah shook his head. That's insane. Richard gave a tired half-smile. Yes. A pause. But it works. Another deep vibration. Closer now. Noah felt it in his ribs. Richard pointed toward the photograph wall in the lobby. Noah turned and froze. The pictures had changed. They were no longer static images. They were moving, slowly, subtly, like film reels looping imperfectly. In one, Ashcroft was crowded with people from the 1950s. In another, it was empty. In another, it was modern, cars parked, neon lights glowing. All of them overlapping in the same frame. Noah stepped back. This isn't real. Richard's voice softened. It is real. All of them are real, just not together. The hotel groaned again, and this time the sound came from above. The second floor. Something heavy shifted. Noah looked up instinctively. What is that? Richard's expression darkened. That is the version of Ashcroft that remembers too much. Before Noah could react, the floor above cracked loudly. A long, splitting sound traveled across the ceiling. Then, a voice. Not Richard, not human in tone, but familiar. Noah froze instantly. It was his father's voice. Don't trust him. Silence. Noah's breath stopped. Richard did not look surprised, only resigned. I told you, Richard said quietly. It speaks through memory. Noah stepped back. My father is here? Richard shook his head. No. A pause. Not the way you mean it. The ceiling cracked again. More dust fell. The voice returned, clearer this time. Run while you still remember who you are. Noah's mind spun. He turned to Richard. What did you do to him? Richard's eyes hardened slightly. I didn't do anything. Another vibration. Louder. The hotel was beginning to distort. Doors shifted slightly out of alignment. Walls no longer looked straight. The structure itself was misbehaving. Richard stepped closer to Noah and spoke urgently now. You need to understand something. The town doesn't trap bodies. It stabilizes identities. Noah shook his head. That doesn't mean anything. It does, Richard insisted. It means people don't stay here physically. They stay here as versions of themselves that the system can reuse. Noah felt cold panic rising. That's not possible. Richard leaned in slightly. Then explain why your father appears in records across 3 different decades. Silence. Noah couldn't answer, because he already knew. The photograph, the journal, the contradictions. It wasn't evidence of error. It was evidence of repetition. The hotel lights flickered violently, and suddenly the entire building shifted, not collapsed, shifted like a page turning in a book. Noah stumbled. Richard grabbed the desk to steady himself. Outside the windows, Ashcroft changed. Streetlights flickered between eras. Old cars appeared and vanished. Buildings shifted architectural styles in seconds. Time was overlapping itself. And then the front door burst open. A wave of cold air rushed inside. And standing in the doorway was Noah's father. But not the version from memory. Not the version from photographs. This one looked older, exhausted, eyes filled with recognition and warning. He looked directly at Noah and whispered, You shouldn't have come back here. Noah stepped forward instinctively. Dad, what is this place? His father shook his head. I'm not your first father. The words shattered Noah's understanding. Behind him, Richard spoke softly. He remembers enough to warn you. Noah turned sharply. "What does that mean?" Richard answered simply, "It means you are not the first version of yourself to stand in this exact place." A deep silence followed. Then Richard delivered the final truth like a sentence already decided long ago. "You are part of Ashcroft's correction cycle." The building trembled, and the lights went out completely. The darkness inside Ashcroft was no longer empty. It was aware. Noah stood frozen as the hotel around him continued to shift like a living memory trying to correct itself. The walls no longer held their original shape. The floor tilted slightly, not physically, perceptually, as if the rules of space were losing agreement. Richard Vail did not move. Noah's father stood near the entrance, trembling as if he had been forced to arrive at a moment he had tried to avoid for a long time. And Noah? Noah felt something inside his mind beginning to fracture. Not pain, recognition, a memory that didn't belong to his current life trying to surface. Richard finally spoke. "You've reached the overlap point." Noah turned sharply. "What does that mean?" Richard's voice was quieter now. "It means all your versions are close enough to remember each other." The room seemed to breathe. The hotel walls pulsed faintly. Noah's father stepped forward slowly. "I tried to stop you from coming," he said, voice breaking. "Every version of me tried." Noah shook his head. "Every version?" His father nodded. "I've been here longer than I should exist." Richard looked at Noah carefully. "You're starting to feel it, aren't you?" Noah didn't answer. Because he was. Fragments of memory were surfacing. Not childhood memories, not recent ones. Different versions of himself. Standing in the diner, standing in the forest, standing in the hotel lobby holding the same journal. Each version slightly different. Each version more broken. Richard continued. "Ashcroft doesn't trap people. It refines them." Noah whispered, "Refines?" Richard nodded. "It tests which version of you survives contradiction." A deep vibration shook the building, this time stronger. The ceiling above split with a sharp crack, and then it happened. The world briefly overlapped completely. Noah saw himself. Not a reflection, another version. Standing across the room, older, calmer, hollow-eyed. The other Noah looked at him with quiet understanding, as if he had already lived this moment, and failed. Noah stepped back. "No!" The other Noah spoke softly. "It always ends here." Richard closed his eyes. "This is the correction point." Noah's father suddenly shouted, "No, don't accept it!" The sound of that voice anchored him for a moment, but the hotel responded. The lights flickered violently. Reality tightened like a closing fist. Richard spoke faster now. "You have a choice, but it is not what you think." Noah looked at him. "What choice?" Richard gestured toward the journal lying on the floor. "You can continue the cycle." Then toward the door. "Or you can break it." Noah stared. "What happens if I break it?" Richard hesitated, and for the first time he looked uncertain. "I don't know," he admitted. "No one who chose that path ever stayed long enough to report back." The other Noah stepped closer. His voice was calm. "Breaking it means losing everything you are." Silence. Noah's breath trembled. His father stepped forward again. "You are not meant to solve this place. You are meant to leave it." Richard shook his head slowly. "That is not entirely true." All eyes turned to him. Richard looked at Noah directly. "The truth is, you were created here to stabilize a contradiction that kept collapsing." Noah froze. "Created?" Richard nodded. The version of you that exists outside this town is only a projection, a placeholder. The real continuity of you begins and ends here. Noah felt his mind resisting the idea, but the memories kept coming, not memories of life, memories of arrival, of returning, of forgetting, of trying again. The hotel shook violently. The walls began to peel away like layers of time being removed. Richard spoke urgently. "You have seconds." Noah looked at the journal, then at the door, then at his father, then at himself. All versions of himself, all possibilities collapsing into one moment. And finally, he understood. Ashcroft was not a place. It was a decision that never stopped being made. Noah walked toward the door. The other version of him did not stop him, only watched. His father whispered behind him, "Remember me." Richard spoke one final time. "If you leave, you will forget this again." Noah paused, then answered quietly, "Then I will come back again," and stepped outside. The moment he crossed the threshold, everything shattered. Light, sound, identity. The town of Ashcroft collapsed inward like a memory being erased. Noah fell. And then, silence. Noah woke up in a hospital in Denver. Rain tapped softly against the window. A nurse told him he had been found unconscious near a forest road. No memory of how he got there. No identification of where he had been. Only a faint sense of something important he couldn't name. Days passed. Life resumed. But something lingered. A feeling of missing time, of missing meaning. One evening, while sorting through recovered belongings, he found something in his coat pocket. A folded photograph, black and white. A town celebration. Ashcroft. His hands froze. And at the very back of the image, a man standing alone, staring directly at the camera. It was him. Noah felt his breath stop. Outside the hospital window, far in the distance, beyond the city lights, a faint road sign flickered for a single second. "Welcome to Ashcroft." Then it was gone, and Noah could no longer remember if he had ever seen it.